The champagne glasses clinked around us as our wedding reception reached its peak. But all I could see was my wife Emma's lips pressed against Ryan's in the corner of the dance floor. 3 hours married, and she was already kissing her childhood friend like I didn't exist. The worst part, she didn't even try to hide it. She finally pulled away. She looked directly at me across the crowded room and shrugged, as if to say, "What are you going to do about it?" That moment changed everything. What followed was 3 months of hell that taught me exactly who I'd married, and more importantly, who I'd never wanted to be again. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Riverside Country Club looked exactly like Emma had dreamed. White roses cascaded from every table, fairy lights twinkled overhead, and 200 of our closest friends and family danced to the live jazz band she'd insisted we needed. Worked overtime for 6 months to afford this reception, taking on extra freelance projects until my eyes burned from staring at code all night. But seeing her smile when we walked into the decorated ballroom made every exhausted evening worth it. At least, that's what I thought, until I watched her tongue explore Ryan's mouth while our wedding cake sat untouched nearby. The kiss happened during what was supposed to be our special dance with family members. I'd been spinning my new mother-in-law around the dance floor, trying to bond with the woman who'd made it clear she thought Emma was settling for me. When the song ended, I looked around for Emma to claim the next dance, only to find her wrapped around Ryan like they were alone in his apartment instead of at our wedding reception. Ryan had been Emma's business partner for 2 years, helping her run the marketing division of her father Robert's construction company. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of easy confidence that came from growing up wealthy, he was everything I wasn't. Where I was methodical and quiet, he was spontaneous and charming. Where I wore off-Starak suits, his were custom-tailored. Where I'd spent years learning to code in my childhood bedroom, he'd spent them sailing and skiing at his family's vacation homes. Emma had always insisted their relationship was purely professional, getting annoyed whenever I expressed any discomfort. About their late-night strategy sessions or weekend business trips, "Jake, you're being paranoid," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "Ryan and I are like siblings. Would you be jealous of my brother? But siblings don't kiss like that with hands, tangled in hair and bodies pressed together like they're trying to merge into one person." The music kept playing, couples kept dancing, and I stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor watching my wife of 3 hours betray our marriage vows. My first instinct was to march over there and cause a scene, but something held me back. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at me afterward, so defiant and unapologetic. Maybe it was the realization that this wasn't spontaneous passion but something deliberate, calculated even. Tyler, my groomsman and coworker, appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of whiskey. "Dude, what the hell is happening?" he whispered, following my gaze to where Emma and Ryan were now swaying together, foreheads touching as they whispered to each other. I took the whiskey and downed it in one burning gulp. I have no idea. That was a lie. Deep down, I'd known for months that something was wrong. The way Emma's face lit up when Ryan called, she'd become secretive about her phone. The increasing frequency of their emergency meetings that somehow always required her to stay out until midnight. I'd pushed down my suspicions, telling myself I was being insecure, that successful relationships required trust. But trust was a two-way street, and Emma had clearly taken the exit ramp months ago. My parents approached, my mother's face tight with embarrassment, and my father's jaw clenched in barely controlled anger. "Jacob," my mother hissed, using my full name like she had when I was in trouble as a kid, "you need to go get your wife and handle this situation. People are starting to talk." She was right. The dance floor had cleared around Emma and Ryan, creating a circle of uncomfortable wedding guests who didn't know where to look. Sophie, Emma's maid of honor, was filming the whole thing on her phone with a huge grin. It's like she was documenting some romantic comedy instead of the destruction of my marriage. Robert, Emma's father, stood near the bar with his wife Lisa, both of them watching the spectacle with unreadable expressions. Robert had never warmed to me, making it clear that his daughter deserved someone with better prospects than a freelance software developer who drove a 10-year-old Honda. Lisa, Emma's stepmother, caught my eye across the room and offered a sympathetic smile that somehow made everything worse. I'd always liked Lisa. She was nothing like Emma's biological mother, who, according to family stories, had been cold and status-obsessed before her death 5 years ago. Lisa was warm, genuine, and had gone out of her way to make me feel welcome. At family gatherings where Robert barely acknowledged my existence, she ran her own real estate business and had built her success through hard work rather than inheritance, which gave us common ground that I'd never found with Emma's father. Now, Lisa looked mortified by her stepdaughter's behavior, and I felt a strange comfort knowing that at least one person in Emma's family understood how wrong this was. The song finally ended, and Emma and Ryan separated, though his hand remained possessively on her lower back. That's when she turned and walked directly toward me, her wedding dress rustling against the polished floor, her expression completely unchanged from the radiant bride who'd said "I do" just hours earlier. "Jake," she said when she reached me, her voice bright and casual like we were meeting for coffee instead of confronting her public infidelity. "Ryan was just telling me about the new client he landed this week. Isn't that amazing?" The audacity of it took my breath away. She was standing there in the dress I'd helped pay for. At the reception, I'd worked myself into exhaustion to afford, talking about Ryan's business success like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. "Amazing," I repeated, slowly looking between them. Ryan had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot and avoiding my direct gaze. But Emma just smiled, the same bright, beautiful smile that had made me fall in love with her 4 years ago when we'd met at a coffee shop near the university. She'd been struggling with her laptop that day, cursing at a frozen screen while her marketing presentation deadline loomed. I'd offered to help, spending 2 hours recovering her files and teaching her basic troubleshooting techniques. She'd bought me dinner as a thank you, and I'd been enchanted by her laugh, her ambition, her dreams of building something bigger than herself. I wondered if she'd been calculating even then, recognizing that a computer expert might be useful too. "Have a round. We should probably cut the cake soon," I said, testing her reaction. "No. The photographer wants to get those shots before the light changes." Lena glanced back at Ryan, who nodded encouragingly. "Actually, Jake, I was thinking we could wait a bit longer. Ryan and I have some business things to discuss, and this might be our only chance this week." Business things. At our wedding reception, while wearing her wedding dress, the last piece of my denial crumbled away, leaving behind a clarity that was both liberating and terrifying. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a meaningless mistake. This was Emma showing me exactly where I ranked in her priorities, and it wasn't even close to first place. Tyler materialized beside me again, this time with my phone. "Your mom wants pictures of you two with the cake," he said loudly enough for Emma to hear. "The photographers are ready." Emma's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course. Just give us 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes to finish whatever conversation was so important that it couldn't wait until tomorrow. 5 more minutes. To continue disrespecting our marriage in front of our families. 5 more minutes to make it clear that Ryan's comfort mattered more than my feelings." I looked around the room at the faces watching us, some confused, some pitying, some clearly enjoying the drama. These were people who'd traveled across the country to celebrate our love, who'd brought gifts and good wishes for our future together. Emma was making fools of all of them, but especially of me. That's when I made my first decision as a married man, though I didn't realize it at the time. Instead of demanding she come with me, instead of causing the scene everyone expected, I simply nodded. "Dance! Take all the time you need," I told her, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. "I'll be at the bar when you're ready?" The surprise that flashed across her face was almost worth the humiliation. She'd expected me to fight for her attention, to compete with Ryan for her focus. My calm acceptance clearly wasn't part of her script. As I walked toward the bar, I heard her laugh ring out behind me, high and bright and completely carefree. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Like she was at a party instead of destroying her marriage. It's like nothing had changed at all, but something had changed. For the first time in our relationship, I'd seen Emma's true priorities clearly, without the filter of my own desperate hope that she'd eventually choose me over everyone else. The bartender, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, poured me another whiskey without being asked. "Rough night?" she asked quietly. I looked back at the dance floor where Emma and Ryan were, now joined by Sophie and a few other friends, all of them laughing at some inside joke while my parents stood awkwardly by the cake table. "Getting better by the minute," I told her, and for the first time all evening, I meant it. The reception ended at midnight, but Emma and Ryan disappeared around 11:30, claiming he needed to get home early for a morning client meeting. They left together in his BMW, while I stood in the parking lot still wearing my tuxedo, watching their taillights fade into the Portland night. My parents had already gone home, assuming Emma and I would leave together like normal newlyweds. The assumption felt almost quaint now. I called an Uber and spent the 20-minute ride staring out the window at the city lights, trying to process what had just happened. The driver, a chatty college student, kept asking about the wedding and whether I was excited about married life. I gave him short answers until he finally gave up and turned up the radio. Our apartment in the Pearl District felt different when I walked in alone. Emma's wedding dress was draped across our bed like she'd torn it off in a hurry, and her jewelry was scattered across the dresser. Her phone charger was missing from the nightstand, which meant she'd planned this departure carefully enough to grab essentials. The thought made my stomach turn. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried calling her, straight to voicemail. I tried Ryan's number, which I'd saved months ago when Emma insisted I should have it for emergencies, also voicemail. I sent a text asking if she was safe, then immediately felt pathetic for caring. That's when the memories started flooding back, all the signs I'd ignored or explained away over the past year. Emma working late 3 nights a week on projects that never seemed to get finished. Her phone always being face down during dinner. The way she'd started dressing differently, wearing outfits that showed more skin and cost more money than our budget allowed. When I'd asked about the new clothes, she'd claimed Ryan had given her a raise, and she was finally dressing for the job she wanted. The job she wanted, apparently, was being Ryan's girlfriend. I changed out of my tuxedo and into jeans and a t-shirt, then sat in our living room waiting for her to come home. 2 a.m. came and went, then 3. By 4 a.m., I'd moved to the kitchen, tabled with my laptop, diving into work as a distraction. I had a cybersecurity project due Monday for a small law firm, and focusing on code was better than imagining what Emma and Ryan were doing. Around 6 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood went cold. It was a photo of Emma and Ryan tangled together in bed, her engagement ring catching the morning light as her hand rested on his chest. Below the image was a message. "Thanks for the great party last night. See you Monday at the office." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Someone had not only witnessed whatever happened after they left the reception, but felt the need to document it and send it to me. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned, memorizing every detail I wished I could forget. That's when Emma's key turned in the lock. She walked in looking perfectly composed, carrying her heels in one hand and Ryan's suit jacket in the other. Her hair was disheveled, and her makeup was smudged. But she moved with the confidence of someone who had nothing to apologize for. "Up early," she said, setting her heels by the door and hanging Ryan's jacket in our closet like it belonged there. I held up my phone, showing her the photo. "Someone thought I should know how you spent your wedding night." Emma glanced at the screen and shrugged. "Sophia's terrible timing with photos. That was just from when Ryan felt sick and I was checking if he had a fever." The lie was so outrageous that I actually laughed. "Emma, you're both clearly naked." "In this picture, we're not naked. We're in pajamas." "It's pajamas." She said this like it was a perfectly reasonable explanation. "Jake, you're being paranoid again?" Ryan had one of his panic attacks after we got to his place, and I stayed to make sure he was okay as a friend. Friends? The word that had been used to gaslight me for months, maybe years. Every late night, every secret conversation, every time my gut told me something was wrong, Emma had used that word like a shield. Just friends. Work friends. Old friends. Friends who apparently slept in the same bed while one of them wore a wedding ring from someone else. "Where exactly did you sleep?" I asked. On his couch, obviously. But I moved to check on him when he was having nightmares about the panic attack. She was building the lie in real time, each detail more elaborate than the last. "Jake, I can't." believe you're making this into something gross. Ryan has been my friend since we were kids. His anxiety is really serious. I'd heard about Ryan's anxiety before. It seemed to flare up whenever Emma and I had plans together, requiring her immediate attention and care. Date nights got canceled. Weekend trips got postponed. Holidays got interrupted. All because Ryan was having another episode that only Emma could help with. Looking back, I couldn't believe how blind I'd been. Did you sleep with him? I asked directly. Emma's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you ask me that? On the day after our wedding? What kind of husband immediately accuses his wife of cheating? The kind whose wife kissed another man at their wedding reception, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I saved the photo to my laptop and closed my phone. I'm going for a walk, I told her. Jake, wait. Her voice softened, taking on the pleading tone she used when she wanted something. I know last night was confusing, but you're reading too much into everything. Ryan and I have history, yes, but it's not romantic. It's complicated because we work together and our families have been friends forever, but it doesn't mean anything. History. Another word that had been weaponized against me. Emma and Ryan's history explained away every boundary crossed. Every moment of disrespect, every time I felt like a third wheel in my own relationship. Their history was sacred, untouchable, more important than my feelings or our future together. What does our marriage mean to you? I asked. She looked genuinely surprised by the question. Everything, of course, Jake. You've saved my life. Never forget that, and I'll never take our relationship for granted. There it was. The real foundation of our marriage laid bare in one careless sentence. Not love, not compatibility, not shared dreams or values. Gratitude. Emma had married me because she felt obligated to, because I'd pulled her out of the path of a drunk driver 2 years ago and destroyed my back in the process. I'd been in physical therapy for 8 months, learning to walk without a limp and managing chronic pain that still flared up when it rained. Emma had visited me in the hospital every day, bringing flowers and magazines and promises that she'd never leave me. I'd thought it was love. She'd thought it was debt. I didn't save your life so you'd marry me, I said quietly. I know that. But Jake, actions have consequences. You put yourself at risk for me, and that means something. It means I owe you loyalty. Loyalty. It's not love, not commitment, not partnership. It's loyalty. Like I was her employer instead of her husband. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, ignoring her calls to come back and talk. The morning air was crisp and clean, washing away the stale smell of betrayal that seemed to cling to our apartment. I walked toward the Willamette River, needing the sound of moving water and the sight of something larger than my crumbling marriage. My phone buzzed constantly as I walked. Text after text from Emma, each one more desperate than the last. Jake, please come home so we can talk about this like adults. You're being dramatic. This is exactly the kind of jealousy that almost ruined us before. Ryan is going through a really hard time right now and needs support from his friends. I can't believe you're throwing away our marriage over one misunderstanding. Your parents called asking if we had a good wedding night? What am I supposed to tell them? That last message stopped me cold. Emma was worried about what to tell my parents, but not about how her actions had affected me. She was concerned about maintaining appearances, not repairing the damage she'd caused. I sat on a bench overlooking the river and tried to remember when I'd become so accepting of being treated poorly. In college, I'd been confident and self-assured, focused on my studies and my future career. I'd had friends who respected me and professors who valued my insights, and had I become the kind of person who apologized for feeling hurt by betrayal? The answer was obvious. Gradually, over 4 years of Emma teaching me that my feelings were less important than keeping the peace. Every time I'd expressed discomfort about her relationship with Ryan, she'd made me feel petty and insecure. Every time I'd asked for more time together, she'd reminded me how busy she was building her career. Every time I'd tried to discuss our future plans, she'd deflected with jokes or changed the subject. I'd been so grateful that someone like Emma would choose someone like me that I'd stopped expecting to be treated like an equal partner. My phone rang. Tyler's name appeared on the screen. "Dude, where are you?" he asked when I answered. "Emma called me looking for you. She sounds kind of panicked." "I'm at the river, just thinking about last night." That was seriously messed up, man. I can't believe she did that in front of everyone. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged that Emma's behavior was wrong, instead of asking what I'd done to cause it. The validation felt like cold water on a burn. Tyler, can I ask you something? Have you ever thought Emma treats me badly? It was a long pause. Jake, I've been waiting for you to ask that question for about 2 years. The honesty in his voice broke something loose in my chest. Why didn't you say anything? 'Cause you seemed happy, and it wasn't my place? But man, the way she talks to you sometimes, like you're her employee instead of her boyfriend. And the Ryan thing has been obvious for months. Obvious how? The way she lights up when he texts. It's the way she name drops him in every conversation. The way she always has some excuse to see him or help him or talk about him. Tyler paused. I thought maybe you had some kind of arrangement or something, because no way would a normal guy put up with that. No way would a normal guy put up with that. The words echoed in my head as we hung up and I continued walking along the river path. By the time I got back to our apartment, Emma was gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter written in her careful handwriting, Jake. I'm staying at my dad's house tonight to give you space to process whatever you're going through. When you're ready to have a mature conversation about this, call me. I love you, and I'm committed to our marriage, but I won't be accused of things I didn't do. Ryan is my friend and business partner, nothing more. If you can't accept that, we have bigger problems than I thought. It's bigger problems than she thought. It's like the problem of her kissing him at our wedding reception. Like the problem of her spending our wedding night in his bed. Like the problem of her gaslighting me every time I noticed what was happening right in front of my face. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash, then immediately pulled it back out and smoothed it flat. Evidence, I thought, though. I wasn't sure what I'd need evidence for yet. That night, I slept alone in our bed for the first time since we'd moved in together. The sheets still smelled like Emma's perfume, but underneath it was something else. Something that smelled like Ryan's cologne. I stripped the bed and threw everything in the washing machine, then made it up with fresh sheets from the linen closet. It was a small act of reclaiming my space, but it felt significant. As I lay in the dark, I realized something had shifted during my walk by the river. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning how to fix things with Emma or wondering what I'd done wrong. I wasn't strategizing ways to win her back or compete with Ryan for her attention. Instead, I was wondering what my life would look like without her in it. And surprisingly, that thought didn't scare me nearly as much as it should have. Emma stayed at her father's house for 3 days. During that time, my phone exploded with messages from her family, friends, and even some of my own relatives who had apparently been briefed on the situation from Emma's perspective. The narrative was simple and effective. I was a jealous, controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. Sophie called me Tuesday morning, her voice dripping with disappointment. Jake, Emma is devastated. She's crying constantly because you're accusing her of cheating when she was just being a good friend to someone in crisis. Did she tell you? About the photo? I asked. What photo? It's the one where she was checking Ryan's temperature? That's what good friends do, Jake. Maybe if you had more close friendships, you'd understand. The gaslighting was so smooth, so rehearsed, that I almost admired the coordination. Emma had clearly spent her 3 days at Robert's house crafting a story that painted her as the victim and me as the villain. The photo of them in bed together had been transformed into an innocent moment of medical care. My mother called an hour later. Jacob, what in heaven's name is going on? Emma's mother-in-law called me saying you've been behaving irrationally and making wild accusations. Emma's mother-in-law? I asked, confused. Her stepmother, Lisa. She seemed very concerned about. You both? That surprised me. Lisa had always been kind to me, but I hadn't expected her to get involved in our marriage problems. What did she say exactly? That you seemed upset at the reception and left early, and now you're not returning Emma's calls? She wanted to know if there was anything they could do to help mediate. Mediate. This was a simple misunderstanding between two equally reasonable people, rather than my wife publicly humiliating me and then lying about it. By Wednesday, the pressure campaign had escalated. I arrived at Tech Solutions Inc. to find Ryan waiting in the lobby, looking appropriately contrite and concerned. He followed me to the elevator, speaking in low, earnest tones. Jake, man, I feel terrible about the misunderstanding. Emma told me you're upset about the reception, and I want you to know that nothing inappropriate happened. Inappropriate, I repeated, pressing the button for the 7th floor. Is that what we're calling it? Look, I know how it must have looked, but Emma and I have been friends since we were kids. Sometimes old friends are more comfortable with each other than... Maybe they should be around new people, you know? I'd been with Emma for 4 years, but to Ryan, I was still the outsider, the newcomer who didn't understand their special bond. And Sunday night, I asked? Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. I had a panic attack after we got to my place. There, really intense, and Emma stayed to help me through it. She slept on the couch. The lie was delivered with such sincerity that I could see how Emma had fallen for his manipulations. Ryan had perfected the art of making his selfishness look like vulnerability, his demands look like needs. When the elevator opened on my floor, Ryan didn't get off. "There's something else we need to discuss," he said as the doors closed, and we continued upward. "Emma told me you've been struggling since your accident. The pain medication, the depression, the paranoia. She's worried about you." My mouth went dry. "Ow, what are you talking about?" "The Vicodin you're still taking for your back. Emma said you've been acting strange lately, more suspicious and angry than usual. She thinks the medication might be affecting your judgment." We reached the 10th floor, where Emma's marketing department was located. Ryan stepped out and turned back to me with what looked like genuine concern. "I think you should talk to someone professional about this, Jake. For Emma's sake, if not your own." The elevator doors closed, leaving me alone with the realization that Emma had shared details about my medical treatment with Ryan, then twisted them into evidence of mental instability. The Vicodin I took twice a week for my worst pain days had become proof that I was an unreliable narrator of my own life. When I got to my desk, I found an email from my supervisor asking me to attend a meeting at 2 p.m. to discuss recent performance concerns. I'd been at the company for 3 years with consistently excellent reviews. But suddenly, there were performance concerns that needed immediate attention. Tyler appeared at my cubicle during lunch looking grim. "Dude, you need to be careful. Word is going around that you've been having some kind of mental health crisis." "From who?" "HR got a call from someone expressing concern about your stability. They're saying you've been making threats and acting erratically." The pieces clicked into place. Emma's family had connections throughout Portland's business community. Robert's construction company worked with dozens of firms in the area, including several that contracted with tech solutions. One phone call from the right person could destroy my reputation without anyone needing to prove anything. At 2 p.m., I sat in a conference room with my supervisor, Janet, and someone from HR I'd never met before. They asked questions about my stress levels, my medication usage, and whether I'd been having any interpersonal conflicts that might affect my work. "We want to help you through whatever you're dealing with," Janet said with forced sympathy. "But we need to ensure a safe work environment for everyone." Safe work environment. I was being treated like a potential threat rather than an employee with personal problems. "What exactly am I being accused of?" I asked. The HR representative, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, consulted his notes. "We received reports that you've been displaying concerning behavior, including making inflammatory statements about colleagues and exhibiting signs of emotional instability." "Which colleagues? What statements?" "I'm not at liberty to share specifics, but we're recommending that you take some time off to address these issues. We can provide information about employee assistance programs and mental health resources, mandatory time off, well, without pay, of course, since I hadn't accumulated enough sick days to cover a mental health leave I didn't need." I left the office. That afternoon, with 2 weeks of forced vacation and the growing realization that Miss Family had more power than I'd understood, they weren't just wealthy. They were connected in ways that could make my life very difficult if I continued to resist their preferred narrative. My phone rang as I walked to my car. Lisa's name appeared on the screen. "Jake, honey, do you have a minute to talk?" Her voice was warm and concerned, so different from the cold efficiency I'd come to expect from Emma's family. "Of course," I said, curious about why she was calling. "I wanted to check on you. Emma mentioned you've been having a hard time since the wedding, and I thought maybe we could meet for coffee. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's not directly involved." Not directly involved. Lisa was being careful with her words, but there was something in her tone that suggested she knew more than she was saying. "I'd like that," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. We arranged to meet at Corner Caf the next morning. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee and an expression I couldn't read. She looked younger than her 45 years, with short auburn hair and intelligent brown eyes that reminded me more of Emma's stepbrother than Emma herself. She was dressed professionally but not ostentatiously, in a way that suggested success without screaming wealth. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." Lisa studied my face for a moment before answering. "Because I think you know that Robert and I don't exactly see eye to eye on this situation." That was the first crack in the family's united front I'd heard about. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I was at the reception, Jake. I saw what happened on that dance floor, and I saw how everyone reacted afterward." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "And I know my stepdaughter well enough to recognize when she's lying." The relief of having someone acknowledge reality was so intense that I had to grip my coffee cup to keep my hands steady. "Robert doesn't see it that way," Lisa continued. "He thinks Emma's being unfairly maligned and that you're having some kind of breakdown. But I've watched Emma and Ryan together for 2 years, and what I saw at your reception wasn't friendship." "Then why is everyone acting like I'm crazy?" Lisa sighed, looking older than she had moments before. "Because Emma is Robert's daughter, and Ryan's family has business connections that Robert can't afford to lose. And because it's easier to blame the outsider than to admit that the princess isn't as perfect as everyone wants to believe." The princess. It was such an accurate description that I almost smiled despite everything. "Emma came to me yesterday asking me to talk to you," Lisa said. "She wanted me to convince you to go to counseling and stop spreading lies about her. And Ryan, what did you tell her?" "I told her that marriage counseling might be a good idea, but that both parties need to be honest for it to work." Lisa paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully. "Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I nodded. "Do you want to save this marriage, or are you already done?" The question caught me off guard. No one else had asked what I wanted. It all assumed I'd do whatever it took to keep Emma happy. "I don't know," I said finally. "A week ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. But now, after seeing how easily she lies, how quickly everyone believed her over me, how willing she is to destroy my reputation to protect her own." "You're wondering if this is who she really is," Lisa finished. "Exactly," Lisa nodded. Slowly, "I've been wondering the same thing for a while now. Emma was a sweet kid when I married Robert 5 years ago, but she's changed, become more manipulative, more entitled. I've tried to talk to Robert about it, but he can't see past his guilt over her mother's death. Guilt. He was traveling for work when Catherine had her heart attack. He's convinced that if he'd been home, he could have saved her. So now he gives Emma whatever she wants and refuses to hold her accountable for anything." That explained a lot about Emma's behavior and Robert's willingness to enable it. "The thing is," Lisa continued, "Emma has never had to face real consequences for her actions. Not when she cheated on her college boyfriend, not when she got caught stealing credit for her coworker's marketing campaign, and not now. She cheated. Before? Multiple times, apparently. Always with excuses. Always with justifications about why it wasn't really cheating, or why she was the real victim." Lisa finished her coffee and looked directly at me. "Jake, I like you. You're genuine and hardworking, and you deserve better than this. But I need you to understand something. If you stay in this marriage, this pattern will continue. Emma will. Keep pushing boundaries because she's never learned that there are consequences for hurting people." The weight of her words settled over me like a blanket. Here was someone from Emma's own family telling me what I'd been afraid to admit to myself, that this wasn't a rough patch or a misunderstanding, but a fundamental character flaw that wouldn't be fixed by counseling or patience or love.
What?
"Do you think I should do?" I asked. Lisa reached across the table and patted my hand gently. "I think you should do whatever will let you sleep at night and look at yourself in the mirror with respect." As we stood to leave, she handed me a business card. "This is a friend of mine who's a family lawyer. If you decide you need legal advice, she's discreet and excellent." "Lisa, why are you helping me? Emma is your family." She smiled sadly. Emma is Robert's daughter, but she's not my blood. And sometimes doing right by family means refusing to enable their worst behavior. That afternoon, I sat in my apartment staring at the lawyer's business card and thinking about consequences. Emma had spent our entire relationship teaching me that my feelings didn't matter, that her comfort came first, that questioning her behavior made me the problem. But for the first time, I was starting to wonder what would happen if I stopped playing by her rules. I called the lawyer Lisa recommended and scheduled a consultation for Friday morning. Her name was Rebecca Chen, and her office was in a sleek downtown building that screamed competence and discretion. I spent Thursday night gathering documents, our marriage certificate, bank statements, lease agreements, and screenshots of every text Emma had sent me since the reception. But Friday morning brought a surprise that changed everything. Woke up to 17 missed calls from Emma, 6 from Robert, and 3 from my own mother. When I finally listened to the voicemails, Emma's voice was frantic and tearful. Jake, you need to come to the hospital right now. Ryan collapsed at work and they think he might have had a heart attack. I know you're angry with me, but please, I need you here, please. The other messages were variations on the same theme. Family emergency, hospital, Emma needs support. Put aside your differences and be a good husband. I almost deleted them all and went to my lawyer appointment anyway. But something nagged at me about the timing. Ryan's convenient medical emergency happening just as I was taking steps to protect myself legally seemed like more than coincidence. Instead of driving downtown, I headed to Mercy General Hospital. I found Emma in the cardiac unit waiting room, surrounded by her usual support system, Sophie, Robert, and Lisa. Conspicuously absent were Ryan's own family members. Emma looked genuinely distraught, her makeup streaked and her hair disheveled in a way that suggested real distress rather than calculated performance. When she saw me, she jumped up and threw herself into my arms. "Thank God you came," she sobbed. Against my chest. The doctors won't tell me anything because I'm not family, and his parents are still flying in from Seattle. Over her shoulder, I caught Lisa's eye. She gave me a look that was equal parts sympathy and warning, like she was trying to communicate something without words. "What happened?" I asked, gently disentangling myself from Emma's grip. "He was in a meeting with potential investors for the new development project," Robert explained, his face grim. Suddenly he grabbed his chest and collapsed. The paramedics said his heart rate was dangerously irregular. "The stress has been building for weeks," Emma added, wiping her eyes. I told him he was pushing himself too hard, but he wouldn't listen. And after everything that happened at the reception, he's been beating himself up, thinking he caused problems in our marriage. There it was. The subtle redirection that made Ryan's medical emergency somehow about our relationship problems. Emma was already weaving a narrative where my jealousy had contributed to Ryan's condition. We sat in the waiting room for 3 hours. During that time, I watched Emma's performance carefully. Her distress seemed genuine, but there were moments when she forgot to maintain it. When she thought no one was looking, her face would relax into something more calculating. She checked her phone constantly, but always angled it away so no one could see the screen. Around noon, a doctor finally emerged to speak with Ryan's parents, who had arrived from Seattle looking harried and worried. Dr. Martinez was a serious-looking woman in her 50s, who spoke with the kind of careful precision that suggested bad news. "Mr. Harrison is stable," she announced to the waiting room. "We've run extensive tests, and I'm happy to report that he did not have a heart attack." The relief on everyone's faces was palpable, but Dr. Martinez wasn't finished. However, we did find something concerning in his blood work. Mr. Harrison has elevated levels of a substance called phenylephrine, which is commonly found in decongestants and some energy supplements. In high doses, it can cause rapid heartbeat, chest pain, and collapse. Ryan's mother looked confused. "Ryan doesn't take any medications. He's always been very health conscious. The levels we found suggest either accidental overdose or," Dr. Martinez paused delicately, "intentional consumption of a large quantity. We'll need to investigate further, but for now, he's resting comfortably." Intentional consumption. The phrase hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Face went white. "Are you saying he did this to himself?" I'm saying we need to determine how this substance entered his system in such quantities. It's possible he unknowingly took multiple doses of cold medicine or consumed several energy drinks in a short period. We'll know more when he's able to talk. As the doctor walked away, I found myself studying Emma's reaction. She looked genuinely shocked, but there was something else in her expression. Fear, maybe, or recognition. Robert immediately began making phone calls, probably 2 lawyers and PR specialists who could manage any potential scandal. Sophie started posting on social media about praying for Ryan's recovery, and Emma sat staring at her hands, unusually quiet. I need some air, I announced, heading for the elevator. To my surprise, Lisa followed me outside. We stood in the hospital parking lot, neither of us speaking for several minutes. That was interesting, she finally said. Which part? The part where Emma looked like she knew exactly what the doctor was going to say before she said it. I turned to study Lisa's face. You think Emma had something to do with this? I think Emma is desperate to save her reputation and her marriage, and Ryan was becoming a liability. Lisa pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. This is from Ryan's Instagram story this morning, about 2 hours before he collapsed. The image showed Ryan at his office holding up a large coffee cup with a caption that read, "Fuel for the big investor meeting. Thanks to my favorite marketing genius for the special blend. Coffee is love." My blood went cold. I'm abroad. Him coffee this morning, apparently? And according to Sophie's Facebook post from yesterday, Emma was at the health food store buying energy supplements. Said she was trying to find natural ways to boost focus and productivity. The pieces were falling into place with horrifying clarity. Emma had access to Ryan's office, knowledge of his meeting schedule, and a desperate need to control the narrative about their relationship. If Ryan was hospitalized and unable to tell his side of the story, she could shape public perception however she wanted. Lisa, this is insane. Are you seriously suggesting that Emma poisoned Ryan? No. I'm suggesting that Emma is a lot more calculating than people give her credit for. And I'm suggesting that Ryan's convenient medical emergency came at a very convenient time for her. We were interrupted by Sophie bursting through the hospital doors. Her phone pressed to her ear and her face flushed with excitement. The local news wants to do a story about Ryan's collapse, she called to us. They're calling it a cautionary tale about workplace stress in young professionals. Emma is going to do an interview about the importance of supporting colleagues during difficult times. Of course she was. Emma would position herself as the devoted friend who had tried to help Ryan manage his stress, while subtly implying that external pressures from her marriage had contributed to his breakdown. Emerge as both victim and hero, while I remained the villain who had caused all this drama with my unreasonable jealousy. I looked at Lisa. If Emma did this, there has to be evidence. There might be. Proving it would require Ryan to admit what really happened, and I don't think he's going to do that. Why not? Lisa's expression was grim, because if Emma is capable of this, and Ryan exposes her, what do you think she'll do to him next? The thought sent a chill down my spine. I'd been thinking of Emma as manipulative and selfish, but this suggested something much darker. This suggested someone who would harm another person to protect her own interests. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca Chen's office, confirming our rescheduled appointment for Monday morning. I stared at the message, realizing that everything had changed in the last 3 hours. I wasn't just dealing with an unfaithful wife anymore. I was potentially dealing with someone who was dangerous. Lisa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. She nodded. Do you think Emma would hurt me if I tried to leave her? Lisa was quiet for a long moment, staring at the hospital building where Emma was probably already rehearsing her interview with the news crew. I think Emma has never been told no by someone she couldn't manipulate or destroy, she said finally. And I think you might be the first person who's in a position to do both. Meaning be very, very careful, Jake. Document everything. Trust no one in her family except me, and don't eat or drink anything she gives you. The casual way she delivered that last warning made my stomach drop. Lisa wasn't being paranoid. She was being protective based on what she knew about her stepdaughter's character. That evening, I sat in my apartment researching phenylephrine, poisoning, and security camera policies at office buildings. If Emma had drugged Ryan, there might be video evidence of her bringing him the coffee. If there was video evidence, I might have leverage to protect myself during divorce proceedings. But first, I needed to survive whatever Emma had planned for the news interview. The story aired at 6 p.m. on the local evening news. I watched from my living room as Emma, dressed in a conservative Navy suit and speaking with perfect composure, explained how workplace stress and personal pressures had contributed to her dear friend's medical emergency. Ryan has been working so hard on this new development project, she told the reporter, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. And recently there have been some tensions in my personal life that I think affected him as well. He's always been so protective of me, and I worry that my marital problems added to his stress levels. Marital problems, she made it sound like. We were having normal relationship difficulties instead of me discovering her affair and refusing to be gaslit about it. Ryan and I have been friends since childhood, Emma continued. Our families have always been close, and he's like a brother to me. I think some people misunderstood our friendship, and that created additional pressure for all of us. The reporter nodded sympathetically. And how is your husband handling this difficult situation? Emma's face crumpled in what looked like genuine anguish. Jake is struggling. The stress of our first week of marriage, combined with his ongoing recovery from a serious injury, has been really hard on him. I'm hoping this incident will help him understand that we all need to support each other instead of creating conflict. There it was. Emma had just told thousands of viewers that I was mentally unstable due to injury-related trauma, and that my irrational behavior had contributed to Ryan's hospitalization. She'd positioned herself as the long-suffering wife, trying to hold everything together while managing a mentally ill husband. My phone started ringing immediately. Friends, colleagues, and family members who had seen the interview and wanted to offer support or ask questions. I let them all go to voicemail, knowing that anything I said would somehow make its way back to Emma and be used against me. But one call I did answer, Rebecca Chen. Mr. Williams, I saw the news interview. I think we need to move our meeting up to tomorrow morning. I think you need to start documenting everything immediately. What do you mean? I mean, your wife just publicly stated that you're mentally unstable and potentially dangerous. That's going to be her defense strategy if this goes to court. We need to get ahead of it. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the game had changed completely. This wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was about survival. Emma had just declared war on my reputation, my sanity, and potentially my safety. And thanks to Lisa's warnings, I was starting to understand that she had both the motivation and the means to destroy me completely. The only question was whether I was smart enough to stop her first. Rebecca Chen's office felt like a sanctuary Saturday morning. She was a sharp woman in her 40s who listened to my story without judgment and took detailed notes about everything from the wedding reception to Ryan's suspicious hospitalization. Your wife has made a critical error, she said when I finished. By going public with claims about your mental state, she's opened herself up to defamation charges. And if we can prove she drugged Mr. Harrison, we have leverage for a very favorable divorce settlement. We spent 2 hours building a strategy. Rebecca would request security footage from Ryan's office building while I gathered financial records and documented Emma's lies. She also recommended I install a hidden camera app on my phone and start recording all interactions with Emma. Trust me, Rebecca said as I left. People who are willing to drug someone to manipulate a situation will eventually slip up. We just need to be ready when it happens. I didn't have to wait long. Sunday evening, Emma came home while I was cooking dinner. She looked exhausted but determined, carrying flowers and wearing the apologetic expression she used when she wanted something. Jake, honey, we need to talk. I activated the recording app and slipped my phone into my shirt pocket. About what? About us. About how we move forward from this. She set the flowers on the counter and moved closer. I know you've been hurt and confused, but I think Ryan's accident put everything in perspective. Life is too short to fight about misunderstandings. Misunderstandings. Even now, she couldn't admit what she'd done. Emma, I saw you kissing him at our reception. I know how it looked, but Jake, you have to understand the context. Ryan has been struggling with anxiety for months, and that night he was having a panic episode. The kiss was me trying to calm him down, like a mother would comfort a child. The lie was so ridiculous that I almost laughed. And Sunday night, when you spent the night at his place, he was having suicidal thoughts. Jake, I couldn't leave him alone. Her voice cracked with what sounded like genuine emotion. I know it was our wedding night, and I know I should have told you, but I was scared he might hurt himself. She was building an elaborate fiction where every betrayal was actually an act of heroism. But there was something desperate in her, a voice that hadn't been there before. What about the coffee you brought him Friday morning? Emma's face went completely still. What coffee? The special blend you made him, the one he posted about on Instagram right before he collapsed. For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw calculation flash across her features before the concerned expression returned. I brought him his usual order from Corner Caf. I was worried about him after our conversation Thursday night, so I thought a kind gesture might help his mood. What conversation Thursday night? Called me crying, saying he felt guilty about causing problems in our marriage. He was talking about maybe leaving town, starting over somewhere else. Emma moved closer, reaching for my hands. Jake, I think he might have taken something intentionally. The stress of feeling responsible for our fight might have pushed him over the edge. There it was. She was setting up Ryan as suicidal, which would explain the phenylephrine in his system and make her look like a hero for trying to save him. It was brilliant and sociopathic. Emma, are you saying Ryan tried to kill himself? I'm saying he's been very unstable lately, and I'm worried about what he might do if people start blaming him for our problems. She looked directly into my eyes with perfect sincerity. That's why I think we should reconcile publicly, show everyone that we're strong enough to work through this together. It might give Ryan hope. The manipulation was breathtaking. She wanted me to publicly forgive her affair, to protect her reputation, and give her cover for whatever had really happened to Ryan. What if I don't want to reconcile? Then, I'm worried about what might happen to Ryan, and I'm worried about you too. Jake, the stress you've been under, the pain medication you're taking, the way you've been acting lately, I think you need help. There was the threat delivered with loving concern. Agree to her terms, or she'd continue destroying my reputation while positioning herself as the devoted wife trying to save her mentally ill husband. But I had been recording everything. Emma, I need you to be completely honest with me about something. Of course, I've always been honest with you. Did you put something in Ryan's coffee Friday morning? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. Finally, she smiled. Jake, that's a terrible thing to ask. Why would I hurt Ryan? I love him. Love, not loved, past tense. Love, present tense. You love him, of course I love him. He's been my dearest friend since we were children. I love you too, Jake, but differently. Ryan and I have a connection that goes deeper than romance. Spiritual. Cosmic even. She was confessing everything while making it sound noble and pure. So you're in love with Ryan. I'm connected to Ryan in a way that transcends normal relationships. But Jake, that doesn't diminish what we have. You're my husband, my partner, my foundation. Ryan is my soulmate. There's room in my life for both. Room in her life for both. She wanted me to accept being her husband while she maintained her cosmic connection with Ryan. The audacity was stunning. And if I'm not comfortable with that arrangement, Emma's mask finally slipped completely. Then you're going to have a very difficult life, Jake. People will believe what I tell them to believe. And I'm very good at telling stories. I ended the recording and pulled out my phone. Emma, I want you to listen to something. I played back her admission about loving Ryan and her threat about controlling the narrative. Her face went white as she heard her own words. You recorded me. In our own home. Recorded my wife confessing to being in love with another man and threatening to destroy my reputation if I don't accept it. Jake, you can't use that. It's illegal to record someone without consent. Actually, Oregon is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of. I smiled at her for the first time in weeks. Rebecca Chen taught me that. Friday morning, Rebecca Chen, the divorce lawyer? Emma's voice rose in panic. Jake, you don't understand what you're doing. My family has connections everywhere in this city. If you try to divorce me, they'll destroy you completely. They're welcome to try. First, they'll have to explain why their daughter drugged her affair partner and tried to frame me as mentally unstable. Emma stared at me with something I'd never seen before, genuine fear. You can't prove I drugged anyone. Maybe not. But I can prove you lied about your relationship with Ryan, threatened me, and publicly defamed my character. That's enough for a very messy divorce trial that will destroy your reputation. No one will believe you over me. They'll believe Lisa. She's been documenting your behavior for months, waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to you. Emma sank into a chair, the fight going out of her suddenly. What do you want? Clean divorce? No alimony, no claims on my assets, and a public statement that our marriage ended due to irreconcilable differences, with no fault on either side. And if I refuse, then Lisa and I go to the police with our suspicions about Ryan's poisoning. And I release these recordings to every news outlet in Portland. 3 days later, Emma signed the divorce papers without contest. She also issued a statement saying that we had mutually decided to end our marriage and that any previous suggestions about my mental state had been made during a time of high stress and were completely unfounded. Ryan recovered fully and quietly. Left Portland for a job in Denver. Word around town was that his relationship with Emma had ended badly, though no one knew the details. 6 months later, I got a call from Lisa asking if I wanted to meet for coffee. When I arrived at Corner Caf, she was waiting with a bottle of champagne and a huge smile. I have news, she said. Emma's been fired from the construction company. Turns out she'd been embezzling money from the marketing budget to fund her lifestyle. And Robert finally opened his eyes. Turns out losing $500,000 was enough to overcome his guilt about his first wife's death. Lisa poured 2 glasses of champagne. Psst. There's something else. Emma's been telling people that you seduced me during your marriage, and that's why I helped you with the divorce. I nearly choked on my drink. That's insane. I know. But Jake, here's the thing. Lisa leaned across the table with a mischievous smile. I was thinking maybe we should make her lies come true. I stared at her, this beautiful, intelligent woman who had risked her family relationships to help me escape a toxic marriage. Lisa Chun Williams has a nice ring to it, don't you think? And that's how the woman who tried to destroy me with lies ended up making my wildest dreams come true. Emma had kissed Ryan at our wedding reception, thinking she was in control of the story. But in the end, I kissed her stepmother at our new beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.